24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
President Buhari holds strategic meeting on US-Africa Summit. National Council of Traditional Rulers maps out strategies for free elections and population census. Federal government approves immediate relaxation of COVID-19 safety measures and travel advisory. On Good Morning Nigeria today, we continue our conversation on refocusing development at subnational levels. For some time now, some Nigerians are concerned about development in the country, especially at subnational levels where the bulk of the nation's population resides. Now, the concern, of course, is majorly on the nature and scope of development projects and programs being executed at those tiers of government, which tend to impact minimally or in some cases negatively on the citizenry. And this prompted Good Morning Nigeria to set its searchlight on the issue with the title Refocusing Development at Subnational Levels, and therefore assembled some scholars, including development and financial experts, as well as political economists, to digest the topic with a view to providing direction to leadership at those tiers of government to refocus their development agenda to be in tune with the people's aspirations and development needs. According to the guests who appeared on the program yesterday, the idea of 3 levels of government as enshrined in the 1999 Constitution as amended is to fast-track the process of development at all levels. They pointed out that at the subnational level, governments appear to be operating with the wrong sense of development. Yes, indeed. And they said some of the projects executed by the state governments are fair and reasonable, but quite a number of them are questionable, expensive, and poorly executed. Now, the guests also indicated that state governments are investing in infrastructure, mistaking infrastructure for elements of development. Yes, and they said the tragic rural-urban migration is as a result of lack of development at the grassroots level, thereby making the citizens to suffer from what they described as a development of underdevelopment, and that makes many rural dwellers to live in abject poverty. And Kinsley, I would like to go further on that.
Yeah.
When you are implementing a policy that is negatively impacting on the people, but for the fact that it's going to favor a few individuals, perhaps in government, you go ahead to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is the tragedy of underdevelopment, or indeed the focus of development at the subnational levels. Now, our guests attributed the situation to lack of a national shared vision, while others stress the need to disaggregate the idea of development at the subnational levels, as most of the leaders at that tier do not appreciate what development is all about, Kirian.
Yes, of course, when you have already put your local government system into comatose, what do you expect?
That's right.
And of course, the guests called for a review of a constitutional provision that gives state governors enormous powers, selection process of leaders, and show consistency in policy implementation.
So, again, we're back to the subject matter. What strategies are required to ensure consistency in policy enunciation and implementation, and what kind of projects are likely to impact more positively on the lives of the people at the subnational entities? And Kirian, of course, we know that the background to all of this is the fact that we now have 133 million Nigerians who are living in abject poverty out of just about 200 million. And the question then is, what is being done at all levels, but more particularly at the subnational levels, to ensure that these numbers are crushed?
Exactly.
We also, of course, have discussed the issues around the so-called ungoverned spaces, which have been taken over by bandits and terrorists, and that if there were elements or symbols or symptoms of governance in those areas, it's unlikely that these criminal elements would have been having a feed date. So what more, of course, is required to drive development, to refocus development? It isn't as if, all 36 states are being tar-brushed this morning, nor even yesterday, but it's just that overall, if you ask the citizens of Nigeria today, what is it that your state government means for you, or what is it that your local government means for you, the answer will be obvious, Kirian.
Oh, exactly. And that is why we have degenerated to the level we are today in terms of infrastructure development and even human capital development at the subnational level.
Big time, big time. Of course, yesterday I drew attention to the fact, and you and I have been on the program on a number of occasions where we had the Honorable Minister of Water Resources bemoan the fact that state governments are unwilling or incapable or reluctant to tap from the bulk waters provided by the federal government in order to have potable water reticulated in either urban areas or even rural areas.
We're just talking about water. There are other sectors, and as a matter of fact, whatever sector that falls within the concurrent list, the state governments usually would not want to work in tandem with the federal government's policy. They've been doing that, and it's not really yielding results. So now, to provide answers to the questions that Kinsley and I have raised, well, we have put together another set of experts as we continue our discussion on the refocusing development at sub-national levels on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I am Kirian Umayo. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Kingsley Osawolo. I join my colleague here to also welcome you to the program. We're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, we'll bring you our complimentary segments, including business and newspaper review. Right now, we take the highlights of the morning news with our colleague Frama Panye. Good morning, Frama.
Good morning, Kieran. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning. Good to be back. Good morning, Nigerians. And here is the morning news. All is now set for the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C. President Muhammadu Buhari, who arrived on Sunday, convened a strategic meeting with key members of his delegation on the high-level event. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the immediate relaxation of COVID-19 safety measures and travel advisory following the recommendations of the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19. Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman, Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19, Boss Mustafa, said in a statement that the decision to relax the measures is based on clinical and laboratory evidence of sustained reduction in COVID-19 infection and transmission across the country. Consequently, all restrictions with regard to gathering in public places have been lifted. Owners of public facilities are, however, strongly encouraged to maintain good environmental and respiratory hygiene as well as proper ventilation. The use of face masks will now be at individuals' discretion for outdoor and indoor events. However, elderly and those with comorbidities are advised to use face masks, practice hand washing and use of hand sanitizers, as well as avoid large gatherings. Henceforth, all pre-departure and post-arrival COVID-19 test requirements for all persons who are not fully vaccinated have been suspended, and passengers will no longer be required to upload evidence of vaccination on the Nigerian International Travel Portal. However, a simplified health declaration form that is not COVID-19 specific shall be completed by all passengers arriving on the Nigerian International Portal. Meanwhile, the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 passionately appeals to Nigerians to ensure that they take their COVID-19 vaccination as well as booster doses. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says everywhere in the world, the police force represents the people and the government in a manner which requires admiration. This was when he received, on behalf of the president, the annual report of the Police Service Commission. The Vice President advised the force to be more diligent in discharging its functions. The presentation of the annual report is in accordance with the provision of Police Service Commission Act. The driving spirit of a thriving democracy is a shared commitment by citizens to a covenant of public service and pursuit of common good rather than narrow objectives. Speaker, House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila said this at the second series of the Distinguished Parliamentarian Lecture 2022 organized by the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies.
As it is today, it is doubtful that the current constitutional amendment effort will conclude before the expiration of the legislative arm.
The fact that the value-added tax is not on the exclusive list is a major source of concern.
I think it is important that we deal with what we have already sent out to the State House of Assembly.
Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation Adeleke Olorinimbe Mamora has made submissions at the ongoing President Muhammadu Buhari scorecard series. He said the ministry has made giant strides in the last 7 years despite some challenges.
Every close observer of the ministry's disposition to the attainment of the mandate and other responsibilities from 2015 to date will testify to our commitment to duty, resulting in landmark achievements that are verifiable with empirical evidence.
The federal government hereby categorically states that there is no secret, systematic and illegal abortion program being run by our military in the Northeast or anywhere.
The Central Bank of Nigeria says it has so far disbursed 9.714 trillion naira across 7 key sectors of the economy to support jobs, drive growth and improve financial inclusion. Report says efforts to mitigate effects of coronavirus pandemic, among other efforts, was x-rayed.
That prosperity will judge us for all actions taken to bridge the gap through our interventions, which are aimed at spurring economic activities, scaling up diversification of the production base, and enabling infrastructure development.
Let's remember that the path to sustainable development and the path to inclusion is not one that will be easy.
National Council of Traditional Rulers at its 13th General Meeting in Abuja has mapped out strategies to ensure a hitch-free election and population census come 2023.
I urge the traditional rulers to promote peace in their communities and kingdoms.
I want you to have an opportunity to thank Mr. President for bringing back history into the curriculum of our institution.
We shouldn't take sides of any political aspiration or affiliation. Let us talk to our subjects for political gladiators not to use them.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kieran and Kingsley after this break. Do stay with us.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who is a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Every day in our country, senior citizens are discriminated against, disparaged, and treated with disdain by those who ought to respect them. We are all complicit in the way we have treated the elderly members of our society as institutions, families, or members of a shared society. Every time senior citizens get offered less than they deserve for the work they do because they are old, poor, and desperate, we are failing them. Senior citizen loses a child, and wow, they must be responsible for their death. Every time a senior citizen gets labeled a witch, is called mad, and shooed out of the way because they have no memory of where they were headed and look unkempt, we are failing them. We say, abeg, it all old, make it do die, make everybody for rest. To ailing parents, uncles and aunts. That's discrimination. That is neglect. When you see an old woman getting beat up and being accused of witchcraft, do not turn the other way. Stop and teach people that white hairs, wrinkles, and hunchbacks are no evidence of witchcraft. Aging comes with a memory decline. Sometimes it's not out of place to have elderly people lose their way, forget details of their lives, and how to properly take care of themselves. When they get to this stage, they deserve your empathy, not scorn. Our ailing fathers, mothers, aunties, and uncles are deserving of quality healthcare and peaceful transition. Make their last moments memorable. Senior citizens have paid their dues. They deserve your care. Stop all forms of discrimination against them today.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
All right, you are watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. Now, time for business. Nigeria Export Processing Zone Authority establishes first economic zone in a school. Details with Aleka Manachi Arwa on business news.
With the discovery of gold and other mineral resources in the University of Abuja and its environs, the Nigerian Export Processing Zone Authority is leading a collaboration with organized private sector and the university towards the establishment of the most modern free zone, 10 minutes to the airport, 25 minutes to the central area, amid the quest for financial autonomy. They maintained that the flagship project will be driven by the best of local talent and capacity that will meet global best practice.
Abuja University also has solid minerals. It has gold for mining. There's also possibility of doing a lot of work in agriculture, especially value addition. Then, of course, technology, many areas.
All over the world, universities can only achieve their goals if they work with it.
Now let's take a look at Monday tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Alika Opanachi Arwa.
Thank you very much, Alika, for the business package. Up next for us, newspaper review.
All right, our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Ubaja, is already here with us in the studio. Chukwudi, it's good to see you again.
It's another good day with good guys like you.
You woke up now. It's like, okay, we have three papers actually to review before the analysis. And first, we begin with the leadership newspaper. Above the name flag of the newspaper, federal government declares Reuters abortion report against military fake. That's on page 6. El-Rufai to National Assembly. Move VAT to exclusive list. Pass state police bill. That's on page 7. All right. Now, the lead story on the leadership today. Insecurity may disenfranchise 11 million voters in Southeast. All right. With three riders to that. Collection of new 930,000 PVCs in shaky start. Sit-at-home order stores exercise in Anambra, Enugu, Imo. Ensure they get their PVCs will be charges security agencies. Federal government cancels COVID-19 test for all travelers. It's on page 30. World Cup, Croatia, Argentina lock horns for final sport. It's on page 31. 2023. Vote only competent candidates, Northern elders tell Nigerians. That story is also on page 7. Now, Tinubu Shetima in Kaduna ahead of Northwest campaign rally. Okay, well, that's it for the leadership newspaper.
And also, we'll take a look at the Daily Sun front page. Daily Sun, there's an earpiece there beside the nameplate. We were not consulted on Electoral Act amendment, says Chief George. That's on page 6. And SARS, Lagos begins reconstruction of destroyed court. And Constitutional Review, which is the kicker, says National Assembly leaders beg governors. Explain why ongoing amendment is important. Reps Speaker expresses doubts over completion before end of 9th Assembly. Call for suspension of new CBN policy, economic sabotage, says CNPP and others. Abortion story against military, fake and ploy to demoralize fighting forces. That's according to the federal government. Uzodinma fingers politicians for INEC office attack, PDP false claim. Critical election materials not destroyed. That's according to the Electoral Commission. Adeleke and Oyetola's men trade tackles over Abuja lodge looting. COVID-19, face masks, social distancing not mandatory at airports and aircraft. That's according to the NCAA. Oil marketers open up on prolonged fuel scarcity. Say Nigeria has diminished capacity to deal with energy crisis. Fire scare at Defense Headquarters, Abuja.
Okay, yeah. Yes, I picked about 3 stories. The one that struck me as really needing attention is the one on the attack on the INEC office in Imo. This thing is beginning to linger for too long, and the polity will be getting a little apprehensive, particularly on that axis of the country. Al Jazeera actually had a way of putting it. It might sound a bit alarmist, but the editors are trying to make a point. 74 days to polls, again INEC under siege. You know? Then gunmen bomb office in Imo, 3 attackers killed. Now, the 3 attackers died, but we should also remember that men in uniform who have pledged to protect you and me, 2 of them also died in the process. Well, the good thing is that this time around, we didn't hear that the people came, performed arson, maybe killed 1 or 2 people. And yes, you could say that, well, being able to kill 3 attackers is reactive and not preemptive. But if you remember where we are coming from, I think we should give the lawmen some kudos for at least withstanding them, for some time. Now, gunmen wreak havoc in Ebonyi. Umahi, that's Dave Umahi, the governor, backed shoot on sight. Leadership says insecurity may disenfranchise 11 million voters in Southeast. If that happens, why can you say that people have freely and fairly partaken in the forthcoming plebiscite, in the forthcoming elections? I think something needs to be done. I think we need to tell our people that what is happening is an ill wind that will blow nobody any good.
Yeah.
Whatever the intentions are, it is time for us to talk to ourselves and begin to behave the way that it will profit every one of us.
Talking about attacking INEC offices, it's been all over the country for some time now. In fact, I'm not sure there's any year that passed within the last 5 years that we did not hear about burning down of INEC offices in different parts of the country, north, south, east, and west. But of course, the preponderance now in the southeast of Nigeria, yes, it's becoming worrisome, as a pointer. So what are other stories?
The oil marketers open up on lingering fuel crisis. They are warning that new and refurbished refineries may not survive on current pump price. They must be referring to the petroleum motor spirit, PMS, or otherwise called petrol, on the street there. They're angling for an increase. And you get the impression that hide and seek is the continuing game there. And that there's somebody who said that all these things happening are to arrange the psyche of the Nigerian person towards eventual, increase in the price of petrol, because DPK, kerosene, AGO, that's diesel, they have gone up. So it must be PMS that is the worry for every other person. If that is the case, why don't we come out openly about it and not make it come in a hide and seek manner? That is what
the scarcity or whatever crisis that exists now in that sector. But if you go outside Abuja, elsewhere, perhaps southeast, southwest, and other places, there's no scarcity of fuel. What you get as you buy at a higher price, so 200, 240, 230, 220, as the case may be, but they're available. So that's the point. So whatever argument or angling, that have ensued, over time between the marketers and other actors, in that sector, they should iron it out. Kingsley has also, spoken on that on previous editions of this program, where we even hosted, independent marketers secretary, national secretary, who was there with us on this issue. So the thing is that when he's blaming NNPC is also throwing it back at the marketers, and we are at the receiving end.
Actually, Kingsley's angst yesterday was there is a department charged with ensuring that these things are enforced, because we were saying that the DSS warning would seem to have worked. And Kingsley rightly pointed out that there is a department, from DPR into the new when NNPCL was formed, some kind of
even the new structure
was done. So what are they doing? Is it that they are short-staffed? Is it that they have no tools of enforcement? If that is the case, come out clearly about it, but you've got to perform your function. Somebody said 2 days ago, we were, talking somewhere, and he said, the president has good intentions, but the people who are to execute the things he has laid out for people may need to get on their toes properly to discharge their duties,
Yes. Interesting. As I said, my views on this are fairly well known, so let me not repeat the views. I'm just going to draw attention to the lead story of the Daily Sun newspaper, which is on constitutional review. The National Assembly
begging the governors,
leaders yesterday at the distinguished parliamentary lecture organized by the Institutes of Legislative Studies in Abuja, here at the International Conference Center, where National Assembly leaders begging governors to also be part of the amendment process, because there's a clear recognition of the power and influence of governors over the state houses of assembly. So this is interesting, because at the lapse of the 9th Assembly, if we do not get enough returns on the bills that have been passed, it means that the efforts at amending the Constitution for a 5th time would fail. So the appeal is necessary. You don't have to threaten anybody, because there are stakeholders, who are interested in this. But if there's anyone who is objecting to any bill, for instance, for the amendment of the Constitution, put that on the table. I don't think that it is it bodes well for our democracy for governors to be working allegedly behind the scenes to frustrate the amendments. If they have their issues, they also trouble it, and then allow the lawmakers to have their debate and then reach their conclusions, rather than using threats and blackmail and all that.
And for the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Wajabra Mila, to say he casts doubts, on the conclusion of that constitutional review before the end of 9th Assembly.
So who's that person lurking somewhere with evil intentions? People are talking about restructuring. Let me say this. If the local government autonomy bill becomes law, would it not be a revolutionary move towards some kind of restructuring of the polity? Why are we holding back on things that would easily begin to ease our life towards what we call better governance, better accountability, better representation, being close to the people and all that? It beats me hollow. I don't know, gentlemen.
Look, see, the other time here, I mean, we had a hot, a debate on Good Morning Nigeria's, newspaper review, and we were talking about the delays in carrying out processes. There are processes by which you must, follow to attain a result. But when it lasts for too long, then for me, it becomes laziness.
You begin to doubt
exactly the intentions. Because one, you can say, look, you could say, sometimes when something happens accidentally, you say, go, everybody return to the house, from wherever you are, and they will return and see it. And if they are going to see it on issues concerning their budget, for instance, and there's an emergency on that, honestly, they'll all be there. Now, if you sit consistently to say, look, even on weekends, American Congress, they sit on weekends. If there are issues, they sit on Sunday.
Any day.
Sit down, deliberate on this, look at that, bring the governors on the table, discuss this and thrash it out conclude it. But we're always inconclusive. And it lasts for so long that we look unserious about what we want to
I'm you're talking like a journalist.
No,
not a politician. It's so straightforward. Editorial thinking.
I have a political science background, and I understand what they're doing. I have that background. I understand what they're doing. Local government is the hallmark of democracy.
That's it.
Local government administration is number one because it gets to the grassroots. And here, it's been negated, it's been neglected, it's been subdued, submerged by powers of the governors. I mean, it's unbecoming of a nation.
Yeah, we should also, in line with what we just said, recognize that about a little over 10 years ago, in 2012, the National Assembly met on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. Here in Abuja.
You can meet on any day.
Yes, they met on a Sunday. For the business, it is now the business of the state houses of assembly.
Yes,
and I hope they are not resorting to filibuster in order to drag on, and then ensure that the bills do not become reality. That's one. I also wanted to invite our attention to this. It's been going on, and some of the pictures have circulated on social media. Some of them have also been published. Adeleke and Oyetola's men trade tackles over Abuja lodge looting. Adeleke, of course, is the incumbent governor, sworn in only a couple of weeks ago in Osun State, and Oyetola is the immediate past governor. There are claims that some of the fixtures and fittings in the government house in Oshobo and now in the state governor's lodge in Abuja were vandalized or otherwise taken away, stripped, as it were. I don't think that this is a matter that will require a great deal of back and forth. There is a department of admin in the governor's office. So every item that is purchased for government is recorded.
Mm-hmm. There's an indent.
It's recorded, absolutely. It's recorded. And the Department of Admin in the Governor's Office has the inventory of these various items. If you say, for instance, you are furnishing the studios, let's assume the studios is a lounge, and you have 3-4 air conditioners in the studios, those air conditioners are recorded. All other fittings, if you have shelves, if you have a stove, cooking stove, refrigerator, beds, and so on and so forth, they are recorded. All you need to do upon handing over, send your men back to the lodges and to other locations where the previous administration and the personnel vacated, and record what you have seen.
Logical procedure.
And then when you find that there is a discrepancy, the last occupant,
that's it.
It meant to account for it. If the last occupant is proven recalcitrant, you forward a petition to the ICPC. You forward another petition to EFCC. Forget all these stories that we are reading every day. You are trading tackles. If you want to trade tackles, go to the World Cup. If you get this thing right, gentlemen,
you're talking about an ideal situation. You're talking about an ideal situation. The very staff of that department you are talking about are these looters themselves. The very staff of that department you are talking about.
No, we can't be that categorical. If they are, they have to account for it.
If you have no access to an office, you can't get into the office. If you have no access to the keys of an office, you can't get into the office to loot it. And if you do not loot it, if you do not loot in broad daylight, people will not see you. And if you are going at night, that means you know the terrain and things like that. So we are not children.
So the likelihood of complicity.
It is the staff of the place that looted. The people didn't come from outside to loot government house. They didn't come from outside. Who showed them the way to the place? So the staff did it. That is in our nature.
No.
Okay, I'm not saying.
That's not what we do as journalists.
See, when you say staff, listen. When you say staff,
yes, please.
Nobody is mentioned. You don't understand? But we're talking about a situation where people operate for so many years, and where things are missing. So first of all, if you want to accuse anybody, it has to be the people that are responsible for those.
They should account.
Account for it.
You
may not mention anybody's name, but you cannot tell me that an outsider came, or maybe armed robbers stormed the government house and started.
I'm giving you. I'm sorry, please. I need to clarify what I said. If it is a lodge, and a political appointee was offered that lodge for the duration of the previous administration, it is not the staff of the admin department in the governor's office.
It's not the bureaucracy.
It is the
really.
last occupant of that lodge that has to account. Because when you were entering the lodge, you were handed the keys and you were shown the inventory of the items in the lodge. So upon leaving, you are also handing over the keys. And if you didn't reconcile, there is a presumption that what was handed to you at the beginning is what you are handing back. But if now the staff then come to take inventory after you have exited and there are missing items, you account for those missing items.
That's it.
And if you are recalcitrant, go to ICPC, write a petition to IPC, write a petition to EFCC, and they will have a lot of cases.
There are
to deal
procedures.
with.
All right. I think we're out of time, really. You know, I would have been beckoning on us to leave. All right, Chukwu, it's been wonderful again talking with you this morning.
I enjoy it. It's my breakfast now.
Exactly. And we're going to see you again tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
On this platform. Chukwudi Ubaja. Thank you indeed. That is super reviewer. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria only on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we shall be, of course, looking at the refocusing on the development at subnational levels. Do stay with us.
They swore an oath to serve our fatherland and defend the people. They traded their freedom, comfortable homes, and mortgaged their lives on the battleground for our unity and peaceful living. These are the great, fearless, loyal, and committed Nigerian armed forces who risked their lives courageously to safeguard our borders. But in the line of duty, many never returned. Nigerians, arise, let's celebrate our fallen heroes. Put on the remembrance emblem with pride to support the incapacitated and families of our fallen heroes.
The occasion gives cause for reflection and reminds us of the sacrifice made by our armed forces in preserving the unity of the country.
All ministries, parastatals, religious and corporate bodies to donate generously to the Emblem Appeal Launch. Send your donations to this account. Account name, Emblem Appeal Launch. Account number 393-200-7526. EcoBank Nigeria PLC.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Well, the housing solution we have developed is a multifaceted one. First, we have tried to lead a program to build what we think will be an acceptable and hopefully affordable housing type based on surveys we did in 2015-2016 and construction that started in 2017. And that's going on in 34 states as the National Housing Program.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together. The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
right, we thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria up to this moment. And to continue our conversation on refocusing development at subnational levels, let's take the excerpts from yesterday's discussion put together by Oyemi Ajayi.
We are not just suffering from lack of development, in Nigeria or at the subnational level, but we are suffering from the development of underdevelopment, which, simply means that, as people are moving, in a form of exodus, from the local government area, the states, to other parts of the country that they consider to be more developed, it brings about a perpetuation of underdevelopment in those areas.
Do we even understand, or does these guys in leadership understand what is development, and how are we supposed to key in and impact on development, and to make sure that we make lives better for our people? Key question here and key suggestion is to make sure that the leadership selection process, we need to improve in that, and not just selection in terms of the governors. No, selection in terms of who becomes a councillor, who becomes chairman of local government, who becomes a member of the State House of Assembly. Unless otherwise we improve that, we're not likely going to see a significant changes in our governance level and in our development stride.
We've also mentored a new generation who will follow that path. That once you have enough money, you can walk into the traditional ruler's palace when he's meeting with titled men, and they will all stand up and greet you. Whereas even back then, no matter your position, you would know where not to walk into, you know where not to, how to behave in certain places. So that is it. So it's not helplessness, it's decades of conditioning that's paralyzed the people at several levels, at the level of values of right and wrong, at the level of the kind of people that should hold public office, at the level of personal dignity.
All right, those were excerpts from the first part of our conversation yesterday on this subject matter of focusing development at the subnational levels. This morning we have another set of guests, and it's our pleasure at this time to welcome Prince Simon Achuba, His Excellency, the former Deputy Governor of Kogi State, and it's also the former Deputy Speaker of the Kogi State House of Assembly. Excellency, we're glad to have you this morning.
Good morning, and compliments of the season to Nigerians.
All right. Also here with us in the studios, and indeed all our guests this morning are regulars on Good Morning Nigeria. Comrade Issa Aremu. Comrade Issa Aremu, of course, a very well-known labor activist, and is currently Director General and CEO of the Michael Imodu National Institute for Labor Studies in Ilorin, Kwara State. Comrade Aremu, glad to have you today.
It's a pleasure, Kingsley. Let me say good morning, Nigerians, to you.
All right. And we also have Honorable Ahmad Sajo, former Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Adamawa State. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Well, thank you very much. At least I was also a former local government secretary, so I understand the subnational.
Yeah. Fine and good. And that's one of the reasons we have you this morning. Okay, via Zoom, I hope that has been established. Via Zoom is Professor Mohammed Kabir Issa. Professor Issa is of the Department of Local Government and Development Studies at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Good morning, Prof, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Radio Nigeria. Good morning, NTA, and good morning, Nigerian. It's a pleasure to be on the program this morning.
All right.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, once again we are glad to have all you with us on the program this morning. You listened to part of the conversation that we had yesterday, but just to commence today so that you have your own feel of it. With my colleague Anaya Kirian earlier talked about some of the symptoms of what is now regarded as a crisis of development at the subnational levels. Hence, couching the caption this morning as refocusing development at the subnational levels. 133 million Nigerians categorized now as poor. What happened? And where are these Nigerians? And why is it that development is not reaching them or is not touching them? We also have a crisis in the health sector. We keep hearing of the exodus of medical personnel, be they medical doctors and nurses. Sometimes the impression is created that, oh, this is a President Muhammadu Buhari challenge, or it's a challenge solely for the Federal Minister of Health or the Honorable Minister of Health. The medical personnel who are leaving our shores, of course, they work in facilities throughout the country. Why are we unable to retain this personnel? We also, of course, do know what is happening in terms of agriculture. We keep complaining about post-harvest losses. We keep complaining about the fact that we are not adding value to our agriculture. In the meantime, state governments and to an extent, local governments are busy with all kinds of infrastructure. And what is the value of those infrastructure that we are seeing to the lives of the people? Are our human development indices on the ascent or they are on the decline? Many would argue that these indices, of course, are on the decline. More particularly, if you were to ask Nigerians today, are they happy? And if they are not happy, what is their evaluation of state governments? What is their evaluation of local governments? So that's the crisis of development that we are faced with, partly in the subnational level. And so I begin with the former Deputy Governor of Kogi State, also former Deputy Speaker of the Kogi State House of Assembly. Why is it that a number of states appear to be busy but are not touching the lives of people?
Thank you very much. Well, the problem we have at the subnational level started with our electoral processes. It was such a faulty process that brought up individuals who are supposed to be in prison but are now in government houses. So when you have such situation, you don't expect anything positive, because if a criminal is on a seat, he will continue to perpetuate his criminal attitude. Well, today, if you do not have money, you hardly can be elected. You can't be elected. But if somebody steals money and he brings a share to people, that individual is elected and is given a position. And he paid for it. So when he comes, he'll start looking for a way of recovering his money and stealing from the treasury. So going along the rules, going by the law, he will never look that way. He will look at all possible means to ensure that he gets his money back. But glory to God for the recent electoral amendment that has brought in beavers. And I'm sure Nigerians will key into this, come out en masse and vote for their candidates. Every locality, we know each other. We know ourselves by name. We know families that are criminals who got money by criminality. So if such people come up and the whole community gets up to say, "This, you are our leader," you are topping, you are empowering a criminal to lead you. So when he doesn't allow your money to develop you, you can't say anything. That is the issue. And I pray that as we get into 2023, Nigerians will get wiser, smarter, stand strong by the polling unit, vote and ensure that they protect their vote, make sure your vote counts, and make sure that no manipulation is allowed in the polling unit. Because it's from the polling unit that elections are won and lost. So if you vote and go and sit down and you give them room for manipulation, then underdevelopment will continue. That is one good thing that this president has done that I must continue to commend. This electoral reform is the sure way out of the underdevelopment of the subnational division of our system.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask a question based on what you have explained and of course the scenario painted by my colleague, before he dropped the question, which actually encapsulated most of the challenges that we have in terms of development at subnational level. Yet some criminals or questionable characters may have been elected in some states, but not in all these states. We've had experience where gentlemen were elected into power, men of proven integrity were elected, but when they get there, something eventually happens. Because you see a colleague of yours or a friend of yours whom you have been interacting with for a very long time, when he gets there, it doesn't appear right. But what is more important this morning for us is those who have successfully been elected into power within the 3 tiers of government. What are they doing with the power? Those already that have been given the authority, because of course you need to have authority before you exercise power. What are they doing with it in terms of development that will touch the people? Now, let me bring in someone who's seen it all, and that's Honorable Ahmed Sajo. What is that intricate challenge that has persisted in governance at subnational levels, affecting not just one state, but almost all the states of this country? Because there's no government, well, previous ones that can boast of not stealing one way or another. So why are all of these makes coming at this level of our democracy in Nigeria?
I like the way you put it. I've served as a local government secretary, so I've worked at the lowest tier of government. I also served on the cabinet of a state government, so I've worked at the level of the subnational government, and I'm here with you. I understand what is going on here. I think there are 2 things. First and foremost, my brother, His Excellency, is making it look so simple, but it's not that simple. The political elite in this country have realized that by weaponizing poverty, they will continue to perpetuate themselves. So the poverty level you are seeing is because weaponization of poverty has become a surest path to attaining power. And so if somebody has to weaponize poverty to attain power, why would he say he doesn't like poverty? Because he has realized that poverty is a weapon he can use, to subdue majority of the people. That's number 1. Number 2, there's a disconnect. We try to operate a federation that looks like traditional medicine. One medicine cures all ailments. We're a nation of diverse situations, diverse people, diverse environment. But we sit down in Abuja and decide, okay, every state must have this. Whether you need it or you don't need it, whether your environment accepts it or it does not accept it, you just go ahead and develop a process and a procedure and a policy, and you insist that it must work for the entire country. It cannot work for the entire country. There are peculiarities in some other areas that these things will not function. So we need to rejig that one. Then there is also a disconnect. We're operating governments as if they are all different. Of course, naturally, as a country, we have our territory. We can define our territory. If you go, you know the geography of Nigeria. But we're not a nation. A nation is a group of people with a shared vision.
One nation, one destiny.
One nation, one destiny. But what is that destiny? You have to have a shared vision of that destiny. You have to agree that this is our destiny. Have we developed that? Now, when I was local government secretary, I do understand that one of the things we did then was first to make sure that we never waited for the federal government before we paid our salaries. We were generating sufficient revenue to run our system, whether there was allocation from federal government or not. Today, there is no local government in my state that I know that can pay salaries before allocation from federal government. For me, that is retrogression, not progression. Secondly, I used to have a very good friend of blessed memory, Suleiman Abubakar Inde. He was the supervisor for health. We used to wake up by 12 midnight, 1 a.m. and drive to primary healthcare centers to see whether they were actually
people on duty or
not on duty at this. We were supervising together because we were very close and we shared that vision of supervision. We used to visit communities and ask these communities to come together and assist government. We put some amount of money into making their roads, for example, motorable, and then they also came out. They also come out, bring some little resources and their energies as people. We joined them in working on those and so there were community mobilizations, and all of this is now gone. We just think that the structures of state, are enough to drive development. If you do not involve the people in driving the development, if you do not involve the people in understanding that what you are doing is for their own interest, if you do not get the buy-in of the people, you are just giving them power. And power in itself is of no value if it does not translate into human, development. So this is where we are.
All right, Ahmed Sajo, thank you very much. Let's bring in Comrade Isarem. Comrade Isarem, I know that you have your own pitch on this topic, but I was just wondering what Ahmed Sajo said against the backdrop of our conversation, namely that, there's almost something like centralized planning. You decide on what to do in Abuja and then expect a uniform application of such a policy or program throughout the country. But the issue has to do with the fact that what are the independent actions that the subnational entities can take and have taken, and the impact of such independent actions by way of programs, policies, and projects. What is it that they are doing? And if the federal government also sets out a guideline to say this is what we want to achieve as part of the shared national vision, which he also referred to, something will not be wrong with that. But the key issue that people are referring to now would be the fact that, as I asked earlier, state governments appear to be busy. But the level of citizen discontent is rising because the activities of state governments and local governments are not touching the people. What is amiss?
Well, thank you so much, Kisley. But I also think that my colleague, His Excellency, as well as Alhaji Ahmed Wasilitu, from local to state and the national actor, we have also talked extensively about the way forward to strengthen local governance. But Kingsley, you also know I'm a member of National Institute. And our motto is towards a better society. If you translate that, it means towards a better Nigeria. I want to commend the NTA for promoting development discourse. But in doing so, I also think it's important that we learn to be a little bit more constructive with ourselves. Because development is about building. And to build a nation, you need a constructive mind to do that. I'm saying this because rather than talking of crisis of development, I want to talk of challenges of development, so that we are in a frame for building a nation. And my quick suggestion would be that we need partnership for development. If you look at the 1999 Constitution, we have 3 tiers of governance, but the philosophy underpinning it is that all the tiers will work together for development. So even this hard discussion, I may be constrained because we are looking at subnationals. You can't really talk of subnational without looking at the national, although they are all in totality. So binary discourse may not be able to make us to capture the issues for what they are, but that's the reality. We are looking at the states, what's going on at the state level. I want to put it this way, that every development is local. Every underdevelopment is also local. Maybe put it that way. And when you talk of the poverty data of 130 million, I mean, I also read about it, Bureau of Statistics. I mean, we can't doubt it. In fact, if you want to put it better, Kingsley, we can even say the entire country is poor. We're energy poor. There's power poverty, electricity poverty, I'm not sure. But that also doesn't tell you the real story. Because this is also the country that has consistently produced the richest man in Africa. When you talk of poverty, because we also know few people who have really built prosperity for themselves. But back to analysis. And what triggered the discussion was because the Minister of Planning, raised the hysteria that development is not taking place at the local level. Because there's an assumption that state governors are engaging in projects that are not impacting on people. But as I said, I think what we need is to promote national development, and all the parties have to work together. Now, I say about data. I think everybody agrees that some states are really working. Some states, or put it this way, many states are not celebrating that they are not working. They are making effort to do so. Let me go to Lagos, for instance. There's a consensus that Lagos, not just now, is one subnational that, in spite of the constraints, had really delivered some level of development. And you need to check the record. I'm not sure what is responsible for this, but you know that between 2000 and 2007, Lagos was denied its revenue allocation, almost a decade. But that's exactly when the imagination of the state actors there, again, I don't want to sound quite partisan, but who was the governor that time. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, successful governor. They look internally and they build internal revenue from ground zero to almost about 200 billion naira. And if you look at, I did some counting, and you can find out close to almost 20 state institutions have been created in Lagos. They are very novel. On transportation, LASMA, or Maritime Authority. There is even what they call CARE, Kick Against Indiscipline. And these are institutions that have become globally acknowledged. They made impact. You've seen a lot of rehabilitation of Lagos that have taken place. So I think in our frustration, in our challenges, we should also look at what the facts are. As they say, even if we are crying, we must see. I just came from Lagos. From Kaduna. And honestly speaking, with all the challenges, this wasn't the Kaduna I used to know. The level of urban renewal is amazing. I lost my track at Banawa, down to Cow, all the way. That takes you some progress. It's also taking place. But let me wrap up the discussion to say, I also spent the whole day yesterday at the CBN, because the Central Bank of Nigeria had a retreat. I think there are 8 retreats on development financing. And I think the first after the COVID, because it just resumed now. And it's very interesting. We need to go through those data. And I saw until you carry the report. In fact, 2 subnational governors were brought to the table. The governor of Kebbi, that's Bagudu, and the governor of Jigawa, Badaru. And they were part of the states, the team of states and non-state actors who gave testimony of how central bank development financing had impacted on rice growing, tomato growing, on empowering women entrepreneurs in good number. So what I'm saying here is that once there's partnership for development, both the federal, state, local government can work together, and they must work together. That's the spirit of the Constitution. So, of course, there are challenges. 9.7 trillion naira is what CBN has given out for development financing within this period. If you do budget per capita, that's very miserable. Just like our budget. Our budget is just about 18 trillion naira. Just do the calculation. divide that by 200 million people. We are poor on arrival. So I think what we need to do is to upscale development in which all of us will key into it. You know, not just states, federal, local government, all of us will work together. And this way, I want to conclude in this my introductory remark that what we need is to bring development plan to the table. There was once in Nigeria in which the statistics we got out was not as miserable as this. You know, we had uninterrupted power supply. Poverty level was not as low as that. What was the miracle? We had the first development plan, second development plan, third development plan, which we abandoned. We replaced with ad hoc structural adjustment program. Everybody worked in silo. We couldn't get results. So we must return to development. And that's why President Buhari has done very well to bring back the new national development plan from 2021 to 2028. For all of us must key into that. We can't work in silo. So all I want to say is, Somalia, let's get the data. Some progress is being made at some subnational level, even national level, some progress. But the gap is so much that I want to call them challenges for development.
Exactly. Not crisis.
Not crisis. Okay. Challenges of development.
So that we all wake up to.
Exactly. Commissioner, we appreciate your comments. So right. You know, you're also being very cautious. You're also being very cautious. The truth is that there's no gainsaying the fact that some governors are working hard.
Absolutely.
And you know, when you engage in development, you don't even need to talk. Although we know that we know that there can be communication without development, but there cannot be development without communication. And when you are talking about Honorable Ahmad Sajo was talking about a yawning gap or a disconnect, it's all about that. When you engage in, for instance, housing policy in a state, and the housing policy made it so difficult for the ordinary person in that state to own a house. And only those who can own a house are government officials. And in that case, you are doing a housing policy. Or if you're developing a city center, for instance, and you have about 20 local government areas, and you are developing a city center, it's looking so beautiful, and people in the hinterland are not having a feel of what you are doing as a government. That's what we're talking about, taking development down to the people, not in the city center for men who have arrived. All right, so that's part of it. Now, let me bring in...
I know you're going to ask Professor Mohammed Issa to weigh in on this. In buttress of the points you just made, we should ask ourselves, for instance, we talked about the housing subsector. Since 1999, we are inching now towards the 24th anniversary of the Fourth Republic. How many housing units have state governments combined throughout the country delivered? When we hear, for instance, of a deficit of 17 million housing units for the country, sometimes the impression is created that that is the challenge of the Federal Ministry of Works on Housing. Let us ask, if states are building bridges, they are busy building tunnels, as some of our guests pointed out yesterday, urban renewal and so on and so forth, and the people are in destitution, are you then accounting for their interest?
All right, so Professor Mohammed Kabir is the Department of Local Government and Development Studies. As a matter of fact, this is your area. As a second-year student of political science, I studied local government administration as a course, and I mean, it's a very interesting course. Now, what would you make of the current situation in Nigeria, where the subnationals are not developing in tandem with federal government policies, and thereby making it difficult for the larger number of Nigerian citizens to benefit from even federal government policies and even their own local state policies? So what do you make of that? And how do we get out of this? Because it has become a norm that council areas do not have to function, that the democracy can go on without the council administration, and governors can as well take up the powers of the council areas because they have this constitutional issue of having joint account and what have you. And nobody cares about explaining to the people what they are doing or with this money as heads of subnationals. What's your take?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you once again. First, I want to point out that the problem of development in Nigeria has also been exhibited in the way and in the mode of response in the panel and the studio, we need to decolonize our mentality, our thinking, and our attitude about development. Our major challenge is our attitude and mentality and conceptualization of what development is. Now, I would like to very quickly take you back to what Walter Rodney said in his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Chapter 1, he asks and poses the question, what is development? And he said, development is a holistic, is a composite, total change in the life of a people and society in general. And he likened development to be, development can take place both at quantitative and qualitative level. Development can take place at the level of the individual, which is about his skills, his innovation, his psychological state of mind, and so on and so forth. And that development also takes place at the level of political, which is wider, and at the level of economic. Now, this is where the problem is for us. The people who inherited Nigeria were not ready to change Nigeria. They were ready to inherit Nigeria. And this has shaped our paradigm of development. Now, fast forward, if you look at the way people think and the theories of development, we've been pursuing the modernization theory of development, or if you like, growth theory of development, which focuses more on GDP, the growth of GDP, economic development, urban renewal. Let's look at rice production. Let's look at tomato production. And that is why you see poverty index in Nigeria will continue to rise, because there is no deliberate, concerted effort to focus development at the level of human development. And it is this change in paradigm that has led to the shape, to the new agenda for looking at development and talking about Millennium Development Goals and talking about sustainable development. To refocus development or urban renewal development does not trickle down as suggested by the growth development theory or growth theory of development, that it will trickle down, that if you, for example, it even has an efficiency theory of development whereby you allow some few people to amass resources and then they will now invest in production. And that is why you see, for example, in our society, our major challenge for poverty is there's no production. We are an import-driven economy. We are import-dependent. We are not production development. And any country which develop on the basis of production. And it produces what it consumes. We consume what we don't produce, and we produce what we don't consume. So development will not percolate, it will not passive, and it will not spread across. Now, if you look at urban renewal that you see, that Comrade Issa Aremu talked about, for example, in Lagos and Kaduna, for example. Look at the population of Kaduna, for example. You are looking at a population of about 7 million people. Only a quarter of that population is in the urban center. What are the urban centers of Kaduna State? Kaduna City, Kafanchan, and Zaria. What is the total? They are just a quarter of the population. And if you look at the poverty index, that is why Kaduna State is also one of the most impoverished states in Northwest and in Nigeria, because the urban renewal agenda does not take account of the rural area. So what you see that is happening in the urban area is not happening in the rural area. There's no balance, there's no holistic or concerted approach to development. And this is the modernization approach to development. Small size of government, cut down size of government, and then spend more on infrastructure. And this is the federal government mentality too. If you invest in infrastructure, it will lead to development at the state level and at the local government level. In 2016, I worked for Chatham House and the World Bank to study the basis of underdevelopment in the Northeast region. And we found out that part of the problem is that there is no production, there is no effort to ginger production at the rural level, because the large sector of the population are rural, they are peasants, they are farmers. And so therefore, government policy only targets a particular product and a line of production, but not look at it in holistic. For example, federal government celebrates rice, celebrates tomato. Is that all? So what is the massive total composite picture of agricultural production? Adamawa State is largely peasant economy. If you go outside Yola, it is peasant economy. I know all the local governments in all the 19 northern states, largely agrarian. So what is the concerted effort? And over the years, at the political level, at the political structure, the system is such that because of several years of transition from military to democratic governance, local government have taken a center stage. Any governor who wants to win election must control his local government. So governors ensure that they dictate who climbs the reign of power at the local government level. And when they come to joint account, they pay only salary and give security vote, just for no development. You have uneven development, you have underdevelopment, and you have dependency. Because the rural areas now depend on the urban areas where we focus development. Federal government focus on infrastructure, second Niger bridge, Lagos Ibadan Expressway, Kaduna Kano, Abuja Kano Expressway, and airports. How does that affect the teeming population of Nigeria? And unfortunately, corruption in our society is not helping matters. People fleece resources. In 2016, in 2015, Lamur talked about 2 trillion naira shipped out of Nigerian airport abroad. 2 trillion naira. Go back and look at your content analysis. The former EFCC boss Lamur talked about 2 trillion naira being shipped out of the airport. And only God knows what happened from that time to date. And of course, you all know the halts that were made at the airport. Now, imagine if this money were invested in agriculture, in economic production. And when we talk about production, revive the textile industries, revive the cotton industry, revive, the budding industries in Lagos, in Kaduna. And what do you need to do? Invest in infrastructure that will ginger production, which is power. The heart of any economic production is power. And we have seen that in the last 20 years, our power production has not gone beyond 5,000 megawatts. And so how do we talk about development? How do we talk about poverty? I'll tell you, I'm a farmer also. In this last farming season, we bought insecticides that were expired, adulterated, and then mixed. And then at 150% over the price last year. So how many farmers will survive economic, agrarian, or agricultural production in this landing season, the last farming season? Now you have flooding all across the country. The local governments are dead, and that is why you have insecurity. That is how you have ungoverned space. Because the local government have been hamstrung, they have been stifled and taken out of existence. When allocation comes, governors fleece their money unapologetically. They pay only salaries and then give overhead for security, and there's no local government.
All right. Professor Kabir Issa, thank you very much for the points that you have raised, and of course the other guests. Quite a number of issues on the table. Perspectives are different, but at the same time you can harmonize the perspectives and say, look, this is where we are. Whether you label it, as Issa Remu would, challenges of development or crisis of development, as we've called it, or refocusing development at the subnational level, we do know that something is missing. And we use the points of, say, look, since 1999, let's ask ourselves, are people happier, today? And what is it that we can do collectively under the construct of our constitution and indeed the shared responsibility that we are supposed to have? There's an issue which was raised yesterday, and incidentally, it's also on the table this morning, and it has to do with grassroots politics versus grassroots economics. That the focus appears to be more on grabbing power at the grassroots level for self-entrenchment rather than focus on grassroots economic development, and thereby you mitigate rural-urban drift, which, as we have seen in the Federal Capital Territory, a lot of vagrancy and, of course, a climb in criminal activities. But we also yesterday raised the issue about the mindset, because at the end of the day, there is a CEO of a state. At the end of the day, there is a CEO of a local government. And the emperor syndrome is such that their word is law. So it is the focus and direction that they give to development that, of course, will attend to this. So back again to the former deputy governor of Kogi State. Why is it that we don't appear to be seeing the holistic approach to development, such as Professor Issa articulated, at the subnational level. You just say, do this. Some of them are focusing on prestige projects where they are busy, but there's no trickle-down effect.
Thank you very much. Basically, all that is as a result of bad leadership. Bad leadership. I was the vice chairman of my local government, 1996 to 1997 or 98, during the Abuja regime. We were getting our local government allocation directly from the state. Nobody was holding the money that was for the local government. And so we could sit as a local government and take decision on projects to implement. Government was at the three tiers: the federal, the state, and the local. But today, in many states of the federation, with a few exceptions, we have only two tiers of government. The local government is completely gone. There's no local government. Under the Obasanjo regime, yes, there was local government. But then after, the local governments are dying gradually. In some situation, nothing goes to the local government. The most of the local government are being paid percentage salary, 20%, 25%. And then the appointed chairman, because most of them are appointed, they are not elected, is given maybe 1 million, 2 million as his money to use to maintain himself. And then the vice chairman is giving little money, let's say 200,000. The secretary is giving 100,000. So the councillors cannot sit. They don't sit. Because there's just nothing to do. Nothing to discuss. Because even if you come up with a resolution, even if you say anything, the chairman is to go back home, revive the local government. If we must develop, reviving the local government first will help us tackle the current insecurity. Because there is no way we can be talking of development when we are not secured. Most local government chairman cannot work towards securing the local government, not to talk of the issue of development within their jurisdiction. It is very difficult. They are even running for their own lives. That is the situation. And as it is, we must look for a president that will bring about a constitutional reform where local government money must transmit straight from the federal government to the local government account. Let it not by any means pass through the state anymore. And the worst situation is such that these individuals or governors take this local government money, they use it anyhow, they get out of office, and nothing happens to them. So the next person comes, he has seen what the former governor has done, how he took all the money, the local government money. Because when you come to office, they will tell you, oh, this is what has happened before, and this is how we manage the situation. Also, these things continue. There is no punishment.
I'm sorry, Your Excellency.
For offenses.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your explanation. But part of my question, and that's really part of the interest that we'd like to pursue, is as follows. Say, look, can we peep into the mindset of the CEO at the state level, the CEO at the local government level? The situation, of course, you have already explained. But the CEO of the state, what goes on in a state government deciding, for instance, to say, we want to have an airport, and we are going ahead to build an airport, or we want to build a road, construct a, let's say, 50-kilometer road. In the meantime, there is no potable water in most parts of the state capital of that city. Everybody is sinking a borehole. And we have said on Good Morning Nigeria repeatedly that we grew up knowing that there was pipe-borne water. I also said, for instance, that where a state government is deciding to say, look, we want to go and build an airport, the disease burden in that state of all kinds of ailments is pretty high. You are not focusing on that. You also say that, look, your school enrollment numbers are weak, are poor, your all kinds of things. That's to say, agriculture. We are not focused on agriculture to open up rural roads, to even have equity investment in industries that add value. But in the meantime, you say, look, we want to build the system. We have the state assembly. There is a provision, there is a budgetary provision for governors to follow. But how many governors are following the budgetary provisions? And where they are not able to follow budgetary provisions, who queries it? The state assemblies have been disarmed. The governors, they have been totally disarmed. If any state assembly member makes any noise, he will not get his salary. The orders are hired against him. He might even be killed. And nothing happens. So they are doing all these things and getting away with it without being punished. The provisions are there. So if as a state governor you say you are going to build an airport and that provision is not in the budget, it's a breach. It's a breach. Who queries him? Nobody queries him. So that is the situation. And if any member of the state assembly now summon courage to say, look, what you are doing is not correct, it becomes a subject of attack. In fact, your house will be burnt, your car will be burnt, your family care is not taken, they will run after you. That is what is happening. So we are looking for men who have the love for this nation in this 2023. We are looking for men who may have been corrupt before, but who will take a decision that I'm a new person. In view of what my people are suffering, I will stand right with the nation and do what is good and what is right for the benefit of the people. So that as a nation, we can turn a new leaf and begin to grow, because we are going dead.
Yeah, Prof. Sorry, Excellency. Thank you. You want to come in there?
Yes,
Very briefly, want to touch on.
Well, I think that's also part of the challenges of development. Your Excellency, when you say we need men, I think we need Nigerians. We need women too. We need women. No. But you see, that was also a reflection of our attitude to development. It has to be seen to be inclusive. We need all of us to be on board for development. And I was trying to say that we need partnership for development. I listened to Professor Issa, my namesake, he spoke very well. But if we recollect that, yes, Walter Rodney wrote How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. But if Walter Rodney had lived between 1960 to 1968, he would have written another book to say how Africans develop Africa. No, listen to me, develop Africa, because that was a decade of development. Of course, if he had lived today, he would have also written to say how Africans underdevelop Africa. So we need this historic perspective. When I say 60 to 68, I listened to him very well, and I raised this in my opening remark. That was the period in which Kwame Nkrumah built a refinery, even without Ghana discovering oil. Tema refinery. He thought we can beneficiate, so we will buy crude and refine. But today, find out Ghana discover oil, but they have no functional refinery, just like Nigeria. Now, between 60 and 68, which I talk about, because we have to put this discussion in perspective, Kingsley, is that there was once in Nigeria in which we had holistic development. I was a product, all of us, most of us, were a product of Nigeria that was developing. Poverty is local. Prosperity is also local. Now, what was the miracle of Kaduna, Kano? You have functional, industries that are working, employ large number of people, pay taxes. In fact, many states, Kaduna that time, could rely on internally generated revenue from textile. So, if what I'm saying here is that if we have done this before, what was the miracle? It's because there was partnership between both federal, local government and the state.
Oh, okay.
And lastly, the context is that development plan, which all of us will
appreciate your comment. We'll take a short break now. We appreciate your comment.
To return back to development plan.
Yes. You are talking about 60 to 68. What kind of administration did we have in Africa, in most states of Africa? Some of them are military. And what
No, that was the democratic Nigeria.
Where even in
military stop development.
See, for us who have a good understanding of the situation in Nigeria, we are talking about subnational at this point in time.
No, I agree.
Yes, and you know, if you go to China, for instance, if you move from one province of China to another province, you will not know the difference. Because development is just even. Move from, in fact, Beijing, Shanghai is more beautiful than Beijing.
Development plan. They have
Chengdu is more beautiful than Beijing, the capital. It's because of even development. And now, Professor Sisa says something about Lamude, one time EFCC chairperson. You know, this year, 2 trillion naira through Nigerian airports. But I'll go back to what Rebadu told me when he was EFCC chairman on one assignment, that the money scattered away from state governments, that analysis of the World Bank then said that the monies can build New York as a city. The money scattered away from different states of this country within that period. So now you're talking about when we were good. What about sustenance of that? Have we lost development reasoning? Have we lost thinking about ourselves? So, gentlemen, on that note, let's take a short break. When we come back, the conversation continues.
Every day in our country, senior citizens are discriminated against, disparaged, and treated with disdain by those who ought to respect them. We are all complicit in the way we have treated the elderly members of our society as institutions, families, or members of a shared society. Every time senior citizens get offered less than they deserve for the work they do because they are old, poor, and desperate, we are failing them. Senior citizen loses a child, and wow, they must be responsible for their death. Every time a senior citizen gets labeled a witch, is called mad, and shooed out of the way because they have no memory of where they were headed and look unkempt, we are failing them. We say, abeg, it all old, make it do die, make everybody for rest. To ailing parents, uncles and aunts. That's discrimination. That is neglect. When you see an old woman getting beat up and being accused of witchcraft, do not turn the other way. Stop and teach people that white hairs, wrinkles and hunchbacks are no evidence of witchcraft. Aging comes with a memory decline. Sometimes it's not out of place to have elderly people lose their way, forget details of their lives, and how to properly take care of themselves. When they get to this stage, they deserve your empathy, not scorn. Our ailing fathers, mothers, aunties, and uncles are deserving of quality healthcare and peaceful transition. Make their last moments memorable. Senior citizens have paid their dues. They deserve your care. Stop all forms of discrimination against them today.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence, Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Very interesting conversation we are having this morning. Even while we went on that short break, you know, all our guests, of course, have very strong views to express on this subject matter, and more particularly what needs to be done to change the narrative. And that's why we're saying refocusing development. I want to come back to Ahmed Sajo, former Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Adamawa State, and also former Secretary to a local government in that state. The issues, of course, are multifarious, but I'm just wondering, has the emperor syndrome so overtaken governance at the subnational level such that the people are helpless? So it is what the emperor dictates that, goes on. But we do know that empires don't last forever.
I think that has not been my experience, and I will speak from my own experience. First and foremost, I heard Prof talking about Walter Rodney. Well, that was done at a different period. There's a book I read and I cherish. Everybody needs to read it. In and Out of Poverty by Xi Jinping, the current leader of China. You've read it exactly. What did Xi postulate in his book? And that is what he used in pulling Chinese out of poverty. A reasonable number, about 800 million Chinese out of poverty. What did he do? Development indices, key performance indicators in development were moved from celebrating projects as we do to looking at the people. What do they feel about their lives? How happy are they?
But that's what we are talking about.
Now, I told you, His Excellency was my guest in Yola. Remember, in my office, when I was a commissioner, every commissioner had a portrait of himself up there. I did not have my own portrait. What I had was a poverty map of Adamawa State. And when you come, I tell you, this is our poverty map. What are you going to add to our existence to reduce these poverty levels? Because I knew the poverty situation in every local government, and I knew how bad it was for us, and I was working towards that. So what I am trying to say is that for as long as we read development as number of roads, bridges, airports that we build, without asking our people how do they feel about the development themselves, we are losing track. That's one. Secondly, I talked about us, playing the Agbo syndrome, the traditional medicine syndrome. one medicine cures everybody. If you're going to do housing, for example, if in my place, what we need are sorrow, not corrugated iron, whatever. Why must you say this? The houses must look the same across the country. Why must you? There are places in this country whose culture is that if you build a house and there is no wall around the house, that you've not satisfied their interest. There are places in this country, if you have a house that does not have a generous backyard, that house is not their own kind of house.
No, whose responsibility is that?
It's our responsibility.
No, who are they our?
The leadership. The leadership of the country at all levels.
Okay.
At subnational, at national, and at local government level. We need to develop a paradigm that works for the people according to their own existence.
Exactly.
Not according to our feelings as a people sitting in Abuja.
Exactly. Paradigm shift in terms of development. I really noted that you have to, if you want to develop properly, you have to communicate. What do you want? What do people want? If you don't establish that and you're giving them what they don't want, it's as good as nothing. That's what happens. Let's bring in Professor Issa once more. When I was looking at remediation, what can be done? How can we turn around the situation? I know it's well depth. In fact, it's habitual now, for state governments not to perform very well. Yes, we have seen projects. As we are saying this morning, how are these projects trickling down to the ordinary Nigerian? What have you done? Do they have skills? How do they exist? Are there power? In fact, as a matter of fact, one has said before that a state government can even establish a power station that can power his state. You don't have to link yourself to the national grid. Instead of an airport, I would prefer to do a power station in my state. Of course, to empower my people, because of course that will bring about development. Why are we not thinking in that direction? What can we do, Professor Issa, to turn things around for the subnational level administration in Nigeria?
Thank you very much for bringing me back on board. Again, I would like to draw you to an instance that you see, we must have a national conversation in Nigeria that was focused on both nation building and state building for development and national integration. Please understand me very well. Nation building and state building, because we are underdeveloped. At state building level, we are underdeveloped. We have a corrupt bureaucracy, we have a corrupt system, a de-development system, a system that regresses us backward. So we have a state infrastructure that is rentier in state, that's prebendal in nature and character, and ruled by a group of elites who find joy in traveling to Dubai to seek medical health, sending their children to UK and US for secondary education, sending people to Ghana and what have you, investing in Ghana, but cannot invest in their own local economy. So we must have a conversation about economic nationalism for economic development. Any Nigerian who has money abroad, not investment, we encourage people like Dangote who invest abroad and bring back a profit. But any Nigerian who has money abroad is an enemy of the country, is an enemy of the state, is an enemy of the nation. So we must, first of all, imbibe this culture of nationalism and patriotism of economic development for nation building. Now, in terms of nation building, we must have a conversation. We want to build in Nigeria. We have people who talk about Edomo Dua or Aniz Ndigo, Ariwa Consulted. We must go beyond that boundary. We must talk about conversation about Nigeria. The lady who won the athletic medal for Nigeria, everybody celebrated her, but she's from Ogun State. She's Yoruba, but nobody is talking about her coming from Ogun State. Nobody is talking about she's a Christian. Nobody is talking about she's Yoruba. Everybody celebrated her as Nigeria. We must celebrate Nigeria. The music industry, look at the closing ceremony in Qatar. Nigerian music was played. Look at everywhere. Look at the celebration. But can you talk about that in Nigeria? So we must have a conversation about Nigeria. What type of Nigeria do we want to have? Our elite must rise up above separatist movement. Look at, you cannot guarantee election in the northeast, in the northwest, part of northwest, and the southeast. The 2023 election, you cannot guarantee it. 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 2023 election, you cannot guarant
Professor Issa, it looks like there is a freeze there on your Zoom. We are virtually now on the home stretch of this conversation. A number of issues have been raised, and we believe that it's an ongoing conversation on how to refocus development at the subnational level. One point that we have also touched on, but very briefly, or tangentially, also has to do with apart from apparently misplaced priorities, whose outcomes do not therefore trickle down to the people and then improve their welfare and their well-being. We've also seen the absence of fiscal controls at the state level. I mean, earlier, the Comrade was talking about the decade of development on the African continent from 1960 to 1968. Ahmadu Bello in the north, Emma Okpara in the east, Chief Obafemi Awolowo in the southwest, and then, of course, on the midwest, Usadebe and others. Let's ask ourselves this question. How many times did Sir Ahmadu Bello charter aircraft going from one location to another? What is the cost? What charter aircraft, which has become the carrier? You understand what I'm saying? When you charter aircraft and you ask yourself, as economists would, what is the opportunity cost of that charter?
These men you mentioned, they didn't even have their own personal houses. They didn't even be their own personal houses. These men you mentioned.
No, you get the point. How many SUVs? How many SUVs did they have? And I asked the question yesterday, gentlemen. Today, what the vogue, of course, is not just an SUV, but an armored SUV. How many tractors would an armored SUV buy to help the poor farmers, and then, of course, to lighten their burden and increase their yield?
When you say SUV, I think as is one SUV. It's about 6-7 attached to one person, and we're saying SUV as if it's one.
When you go to the issue of hiring plane, that is at a high level. Today, let me tell you, in most local government, the workers do not stay there, and they don't go to office.
I think that's precisely the point.
Now
that we need holistic development discourse.
Yes.
At level. And I thought we should stay on solution the way forward. You know, you mentioned China. China is running 12th 5-year development plan. We virtually started at the same time. So all those Shanghai city group, they are part of the development plan, which everybody bought into. And that's why I'm talking about. Even sustainable development goal 17 says that all the actors have to work together. In the case of Nigeria, local government, state, federal. And I'm happy this discussion is taking place. Let me talk NTA because it's on the eve of election. You know, let's put the issues on the agenda, which we are discussing now. And if I have my way, I think we should legislate the new development plan. Didn't miss no one. So that everybody keeps no, because the new developer did not say government should charter flight. He did say that you should be doing projects that do not trickle out to the people. All of us should get bought, because that beauty of that plan is that all the stake actors were there. It does also say workers will not be on duty. And the last one I want to raise, I am the Director General of a Labour Institute. I inherited an institute that was abandoned, already decayed. But I didn't go there to be agonizing. I need to modernize. I need to bring it back. And today it's been done. But what I'm saying is that sustainable development can only come through time. If you go to a Labour Institute today, there is a difference between what I made there and what we are doing now. Because it worked before, and we have to now bring it back to work. And that requires honesty of purpose, transparency.
Just
Yes.
You see, now most workers no longer stay in the local government. It means that when they earn their money, they don't even spend it in the local government. The same for the state. And so the economy of most of the states are now dried. During my time as vice chairman of my local government, I come from my village to the local government headquarters 7:30 on bicycle. I'll go because the local government road was not that, and I remain in office to closing time, Monday to Fridays, and I go back to my village to sleep every day. And when eventually I had a car, so I started using, when the road became good, I started using vehicle and it was okay. But today, they don't even go to office at all. And in the state, when they make money, when they take this money from the state, they bring it to Abuja here.
We're running out of time. Before we close, you're talking about local government workers not going to work. Well, personal experience, to my local government area, for one document or the other. And I got there. There was nobody. It was a ghost town, a council area. Nobody was there to attend to you in the first place. But towards the end of the month, or maybe they know the salary. It will be crowded, not just filled, crowded. Then after that, everybody.
So it's not that we have not. It's not that we have not had. Okay, thank you. There have been enough. We have to thank. Your Excellency, I want to thank you. We want to thank you. But one point that we want you to also take away, because it came up yesterday, as part of the absence of fiscal controls, subnational entities have been borrowing, and sometimes it is said that the borrowing is reckless. Yes, there are checks, for instance, through SEC, that is the Securities and Exchange Commission, and through the DMO to assess whether or not you are qualified to borrow. When you are then pre-qualified and indeed you borrow, when you are utilizing the money, nobody keeps an eye on you. Well, SUVs are Tata aircraft.
Let me sign off this program. I want to thank you, Prince Simon Achuba, former Deputy Governor, Kogi State, former Deputy Speaker, Kogi State House of Assembly. We thank you for being here this morning for the program. We thank you and appreciate your time. Kwame Isaremu, Director General, CEO, Michael Imodu, National Institute for Labor Studies, Ilori, Kwara State. Subnational. We thank you. We thank you. You're still operating a borehole in Ilori. All right. That's by the way. Honorable Ahmad Sajo, former Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Adamawa State. Thank you again. As always, I mean, you always here with us, yes.
But we really need to determine our development based on people's
of course, Professor Mohammed Kabir Isa, Department of Local Government and Development Studies at Malibolo University. We want to thank you so much for your point this morning. We appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. But you have to bring me to the studio. You guys are unfair to us on Zoom.
Okay. You are doing a studio. Okay.
All right. No. It's not been under development. You have been underhead.
Okay. Let's take some bit of pause, please.
Nigeria's Rivers United have been drawn in Group B with Cote d'Ivoire's ASEC Mimosas, Motema Pembe of DR Congo, and Congo-Brazzaville's based Diable Noir in the 2022-2023 CAF Confederations Cup. The draw for the Confederations Cup group stage was held on Monday at the CAF headquarters in Cairo, Egypt. Rivers United are the only surviving team representing Nigeria in the CAF club competition. Each group will be played on a home and away round-robin basis, with the winners and runners-up of each group advancing to the quarterfinals of the knockout stage. Matchday 1 of the CAF Confederations Cup group stage will kick off on 12th February 2023. Meanwhile, all is set for Lionel Messi and Argentina to continue their march on to victory as they go up against a formidable Croatian side who have thus far produced one of the biggest upsets of the World Cup when they knocked out tournament favourites Brazil. Argentina, who lost their first group game against Saudi Arabia, upturned the narrative among critics and pundits who may have tipped the South American side to bow out early in the knockout stages as they did at the Russia 2018 World Cup. Croatia, on the other hand, are on the verge of appearing at a FIFA World Cup final twice in a row for the first time ever, and victory against Argentina may potentially see them go up against defending champions France yet again. The Alba Celeste will be looking to cause an upset to Croatia as...
All right, it's been a very interesting conversation this morning. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, along of course with our guests in the studios. Join us again tomorrow for a fresh package of good morning.
And I am Kyrian. You do have a wonderful day.
latest entrant, latest technique, or any of our stores in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt to get started. Intel. Live more.
24 hours a day. Computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment. Then NTA. You can International on the go. Anywhere in the world. NTA International.
This is the network service of the NTA.